I think a history degree at Cambridge provides two really useful skills. The first is it gives you a critical perspective on the information that's around you. That's what historians are trained to do. We're trained to look at the sources that we have and try and assess whether it's true or not. And I think in the society that we live in, that's an essential survival skill because we're bombarded with information, and how do we make sense of it? The other critical skill that I think it provides is a broader perspective on the problems that we are facing, which might seem really overwhelming at times. And this is a reminder that human history is long and people have been through many challenges and they've figured out different ways of solving them. And that can be really, really helpful to changing the world that we're in right now.
A lot of people think that history is about leaving the present moment and immersing oneself in a very dusty past. And that's partly true. It is definitely about a time that we don't recognize, which is alien to us. But it's also about our time and the problems that face us today, and how that kind of far distant land in the past, which is history, can actually aid us as we think about the predicaments that face us, and also just simply about what it means to be a human right now.
History is not just about being relevant because it's interesting in its own right. Knowing how people lived in the past is in itself fascinating, but it is also true that we don't live in a vacuum. Everything has roots, everything has links with the past, and part of what historians can provide when suddenly their expertise becomes relevant is to provide that long view and those elements of a better understanding of what we're living through at the moment.
My name is Arthur Asraf. I'm an associate professor in history at the University of Cambridge, and I specialize in the history of France and the Francophone world in the modern period, and more particularly in the history of media. So, for example, I work on the history of radio. I'm interested in how people listen to radio, what kind of new musical tastes developed. Often with students we have conversations about whether this is different from the podcast they listen to. And that's obviously very different from the kind of history you do at school.
My name is Julie Barrault. I'm a medievalist, so I study the High Middle Ages, and I'm a social, cultural and political historian. What is, I think, great about studying the Middle Ages is that the remains are here. There are buildings, there are manuscripts, there are all sorts of things that are part of our society. But it's also incredibly different. It's like studying a far, far away country because people, structures, ideas, prejudices were very, very different from ours. So it is that sort of clash between the here and the very far that I find really fascinating.
I'm Sujit Sivasundram. I'm Professor of World History, meaning, well, the history outside the West. I never thought I would be a historian. In fact, I took various other disciplines and threw out my history books as a child. And so history has been something that's come to me slowly over many, many years. But the more I've got into it, the more I've realized that it's immensely rich and that there's no end to it. No end to the way we interpret it, and no end to really the riches within it. The Cambridge History degree has been totally revised in the last few years, which means that the courses that we offer to first and second years represent the cutting edge of history. Parts of the world which we didn't offer to first and second years before. It represents key areas of debate, not just amongst historians, but the wider public as well, about imperialism, about globalization, the status of the environment. These are topics that we touch upon in the degree head-on.
So we go way beyond what anyone who has studied at A-level. From ancient Greece to very, very modern China. We also cover, it's not just about place and space, but also themes. So, we think about gender, we think about material history, we think about the intersection of many different elements. So it's not just about doing other political history or social history or cultural history, but saying that if you want to look at one given society, you need to look at them from many, many different perspectives. So it's not about just the breadth in terms of time and space, but themes and approaches, and that's how we bring our research into the way we teach as well. So it's very alive.
Most kind of regions you could think of we cover in lots of different periods, from really antiquity I gave a lecture on the millennium bug in 1999, 2000, so we really kind of push into the 21st century on the other side. It's not necessarily things that are that old. And it's not just looking at famous people again and again, but also kind of trying to understand the experience of everyday people in the past. How did women work in early modern England? What were they doing while Elizabeth was at court? Because we obviously know a lot about the Queen, but maybe we don't know as much about the people who made her food.
Cambridge is an extremely beautiful place, full of very interesting people who come from different parts of the country, different perspectives, and who are fundamentally different from each other. So it's really possible to find your niche in Cambridge, and it's definitely possible to be who you are.
We are a lot more diverse as a group of historians than we were even 20 or 30 years ago. And it also means that we were trained in different places, and we bring all that intellectual makeup with us. And I think that's also what makes Cambridge a really, really interesting place to study, because the way you train the people you are trained by has a huge influence on the way you think about history and also on the way you teach it. So it's not just about expertise, but also about intellectual culture, intellectual traditions. And we are all gathered here to then try to make sense of the past together.
History is actually very creative because we bring to it the people that we are. And every single person will interpret a particular piece of evidence in a slightly different way. And that's why we want in the history degree as many different kinds of people as we can find, because I think the richness of Cambridge history comes from the diversity of its practitioners.
I think what is special about the teaching at Cambridge is the amount of specialists, the sort of range that we have, that we can really provide expertise on so many different areas of the human past, and that students are in such close contact with them. So through the supervision system, students will often be in a room with the world expert on a particular topic. And we're not so much there to tell you exactly what to think about a particular topic, but to think together.
It's also a privilege for us to be able to teach in that format, because you get to really know the students, you get to see their progress in their understanding of the subject, in their writing skills, in their analytical skills, and really get to build that relationship over a few weeks or a few months. And this is really, really very special.
So students within the one-to-one or one-to-two supervisions are certainly challenged, but they're also supported and nurtured to grow as historians.
The kind of people who do well in a history degree, I think they have a few common characteristics. One is you have to be really interested in finding out about the world around you and about many different periods. The other is you have to enjoy reading a lot, digesting a lot of new information, because we do kind of expect people to get through a lot of different things. And especially, and this is the most important one, I would say, you have to want to answer your own questions. This is not a degree where we do a huge amount of feeding and tell you this is what you need to think. That's not very interesting for us. We're mostly interested in people who come and who have their own curiosity about the past.
We're looking for people with potential. Not people who are fully formed, who know exactly what they think, and who have read 100 history books already, certainly if such a person exists, but more someone who brings with them a series of experiences maybe, which have been formative and which are relevant to the study of history. People who are willing to just go off the beaten track and to be original.
I'd like our potential students to know that if they come here, they will have space to grow and to make mistakes and to try out ways of thinking and ways of writing and ways of conceiving history outside of exams. There are exams here, but most of your work is not going to be exam-centered. It's really about developing your understanding and your practice of history. And you're here to find out what you are really passionate about and to become the best historian you can be over those 3 years.
If any of this sounds interesting, why not send in an application? You may be surprised. we may be seeing you soon in Cambridge.